Everyone, when we think of the Age of Discovery or world circumnavigation, we usually list the names of Westerners first, don't we? While Marco Polo was busy drooling over the golden empires of the East, there were actually monsters of exploration from the East who ran in the exact opposite direction or recorded the bizarre, blood-soaked truths of the jungle that we never could have imagined. Today's story is about two such men, Rabban bar Sauma, the Mongol priest who tried to lecture the Pope, and Zhou Daguan, the diplomat who recorded the gruesome slaughter hidden behind the majesty of Angkor Wat. Let's travel back to Beijing in the year 1275. While the Mongol Empire was swallowing the world whole, a monk set out on a journey. His name was Rabban bar Sauma. He wasn't just a monk chanting sutras. He was a secret diplomat carrying a special mission from Arghun Khan of the Mongol Ilkhanate. His mission was mind-bogglingly massive: go to Europe, meet the Pope and the kings, and join hands with the Mongols to wipe out the Islamic forces. It was essentially a quest to form a global world war alliance. When Sauma stepped onto European soil, medieval Europe was a total shock to him. How do you think Europeans reacted when they first saw an Easterner back then? When Sauma arrived in Rome, the cardinals surrounded him and held a sort of hearing. They pelted him with rude questions like, "Is the God you believe in the same as ours? And do they really eat dogs in the Mongol Empire?" But Sauma didn't flinch. Instead, he glared at them and shouted, "I didn't come here to listen to your sermons. I came to see if your faith is as lazy as they say." This was the kind of audacity that was only possible because he had the massive Mongol Empire backing him up. The most bizarre and provocative parts of Sauma's records are the scenes he witnessed in Paris. He was horrified by the holy relics kept in the basements of cathedrals. At the time, Europeans had a custom of dismembering the corpses of saints to preserve them as relics. Sauma shuddered, writing, "How can the living worship the bones of the dead so cruelly?" One execution scene he witnessed was particularly vivid. As he watched the gruesome punishments carried out in the public square to uphold the king's authority, he recorded how hypocritical the mercy of Westerners truly was. He noted that the Inquisition of Europe felt even colder than a Mongol blade. Specifically, Sauma's description of a naval battle he witnessed in Naples is the height of brutality. He recorded with eerie detachment how thousands of soldiers boarded each other's ships to split heads with axes and poured boiling oil to fry men alive. The way Christians kill each other is far more ruthless than the way Mongols treat their prey. He wrote, capturing the chaos of Europe at the time. While he marveled at the grandeur of the University of Paris, he recoiled at the extreme inequality, having to step over the corpses of the poor, rotting in the alleys right next to the prestigious school. Now, let's shift our gaze completely to the humid jungles of Southeast Asia. In 1296, a man named Zhou Daguan arrived in the Angkor Empire of Cambodia by order of the Yuan Emperor. To us today, Angkor Wat is a mysterious and beautiful tourist site, right? But the Angkor Wat Zhou Daguan saw was a city of blood and gold. He gazed at this strange empire with awe, but also began to leave behind bone-chilling records. The most shocking of these is the secret tale of gallbladder harvesting. Can you believe this? At the time, the Angkor Empire was frequently at war with neighboring Siam, Thailand, and there is a record stating that soldiers drank the gallbladder bile of living humans to gain courage. Zhou wrote, "When night falls, thousands of catchers spread out into the streets. They throw leather bags over the heads of passers-by and cut open their bellies while they are still alive to extract the gallbladder. The detail that this bile was then mixed into the king's wine is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. This gallbladder hunting was only done on the living because it was believed the bile of a corpse held no power." Zhu notes that the screams of the victims dominated the jungle nights. Furthermore, Zhou Daguan exposed that the magnificent stone structures of Angkor Wat were actually built upon the corpses of slaves. As elephants moved tens of thousands of stones, the screams of slaves crushed beneath them were constant. Behind the ornate gold decorations were the stench of rotting bodies due to the humid climate, and the sight of prisoners being thrown into moats, swarming with crocodiles for the crime of attempted rebellion. Zhou recorded the bizarre sexual customs and brutal punishment systems of this prosperous empire with the cold precision of an autopsy report. The punishments in the Angkor Empire at the time were beyond imagination. Cutting off hands and feet for theft was basic, and they used a system called trial by ordeal to determine guilt. A suspect would be locked in a cage with a wild beast if they survived for a few days. They were innocent if they were eaten. They were guilty. Zhou watched as a hungry leopard tore out a prisoner's throat, realizing that this brilliant civilization stood atop a foundation of primal violence. He even viewed the magnificent royal processions through a lens of horror. If anyone dared to block the path of the king's march, they were trampled to death on the spot by elephants. Behind the gold offered for the king's dignity lay the blood and sweat of tens of thousands of slaves who carved stone under the scorching sun. Without a single drop of water, Zhou witnessed firsthand the leprosy, skin diseases, and wounds teeming with maggots that went untreated, capturing the grim reality behind the civilization. What did the journeys of these two men ultimately leave behind? Rabban bar Sauma failed to secure an alliance between Europe and the Mongols. However, he planted a seed of fear in Westerners, showing them that the East is not a land of primitive monsters, but home to an empire more sophisticated and powerful than yours. In the final diary entry before his death, he wrote, "The world is wide and humans are cruel everywhere. It's just that the techniques for packaging that cruelty differ." On the other hand, Daguan's records became the only clue to reintroducing Angkor Wat to the world after the empire vanished and was swallowed by the jungle. Without his accounts of gallbladder hunters or crocodile moats, we might have remembered Angkor Wat merely as a beautiful ruin. Thanks to his records, we can read the madness and suffering of humanity, hidden behind the brilliant art. While Marco Polo sang only of wealth and wonder in his travels, these two Eastern explorers looked directly into the smell of blood and the ruthlessness of power, hidden in the shadows of civilization. Reading the records of those who risked their lives to reach the edge of the world 700 years ago makes one wonder if the world we live in today might also look like a bizarre and cruel landscape to someone else. If you could go back 700 years, would you rather stand in a medieval European cathedral where bones are on display like Sauma? Or would you stay in the jungles of Angkor, where gallbladder hunters roam the night like Zhou? History is often a comedy from a distance, but when recorded up close as these men did, it becomes a haunting tragedy. These strange and chilling scenes of the Middle Ages, how did they strike you? If today's story was intriguing, next time we will dive into even darker records of what happened when the Mongol Empire finally collapsed, and I'll lead you directly to the scene of that devastating fall.